Hello race fans, my name is Taylor and welcome to Above the Yellow Line, the podcast where we talk about all the updates, theories, news, recaps, and more of the NASCAR Cup Series. This time around we're talking about updates and hot takes of the NASCAR Cup Series. I asked on social media how y'all like these updates, whether I put them on their own or with the pre-race podcast, and it was a combination of split vote. So for this one in particular, because there's so much to update, I decided to separate it from the pre-race Atlanta podcast. So make sure you check this one out first, then check out the Atlanta podcast right after. To preface this, I'm not in my normal setup. Audio, again, is going to sound a little bit weird. It's going to sound a little weird on the next podcast as well, so I apologize, but we'll get back to normal soon. I think it's important to just put out the content, put out the news, so here we are. Just audio is going to be a little off, so I do apologize for that. But let's jump into what we're going to be talking about in this podcast. We're going to talk about Superstar Racing Experience, breaking some news there. Haven't talked about it on the podcast yet. I tried to do one like when I was starting the podcast, but it didn't go too well, so I didn't finish it, but we're going to mention it all today with a lot of breaking news, a lot of new stuff coming from them. Then we're going to talk about Bubba Wallace testing at Richmond, LeBron James and Richmond Racing, number placement on the cars, and then we're going to end with COVID-sniffing dogs. Trust me, it's weird, but I will explain it later, I promise you. I do want to mention a little bit about next week's schedule. The Bristol Dirt Race is next weekend. It's pretty exciting. The reason, though, I am not doing a Bristol Dirts Up race like periodically, because I know there's been news coming out about it week by week. The reason I haven't been doing that is because I don't want to give sprinkles of information, because I know I will forget that information if it's not all in one place at one time. So I'm waiting until all the information is set in stone with the Bristol Dirt Race, giving it to you 3 days, 4 days before the actual race happens, so you know what's going to happen. You don't forget, because I know I will. So it's not that I don't care about the information. It's not that it's not exciting to me. It is. And I care. I just want to give it to you all at once. So hope you understand that. Be ready to watch that next week in a pretty lengthy podcast about the Bristol Dirt Race. But let's move on to updates from actually a few hours ago. From a new racing series coming to you soon, the Superstar Racing Experience, the brainchild of Tony Stewart and Ray Evernham, just announced their full-time driver lineup. I talked about this series before, like I said on a podcast I did not release, so I will fill everyone in right here, right now. This series that they said was not intended to compete with NASCAR is a new racing series for race fans who love high horsepower and low downforce packages. This is to the fans who miss a little extra racing in their lives and miss the basics of racing that seems to just be missing from motorsports in the world nowadays. It also comes with a nifty looking car too. I actually really like the car. SXR already has a broadcasting deal with CBS for Saturdays, I believe, and will feature 6 short track races starting this summer. Those tracks are listed in front of you, as you can see. They released a video, actually, too, of the car during the Phoenix race on Sunday, a very nonchalant way to release how the car sounds and how the drive looks during a NASCAR race, though supposedly they're not going to compete with NASCAR, so I will play that clip for you right now. Take a look and listen. As I mentioned, the tracks for this race, and for that car, by the way, sounds pretty stellar there. The tracks are interesting. They're not your normal NASCAR tracks. Eldora, the trucks in the NASCAR series, have been on that before, but a lot of new ones. Knoxville Raceway is really cool for me, and the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway is super cool. I'm very excited to see that. With all that info, let's discuss the full-time driver lineup. We'll put the list up here for you. Notable names I am very excited about. Obviously, Tony Stewart. We have Bobby Labonte, Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, Bill Elliott, someone I am very excited for. The same goes for Michael Waltrip, too. I never really got to see him race, and he's a personality I love. We also have non-NASCAR racers on this list, like Marco Andretti. Lots of all-time greats, very cool series. I'm very anxious to check it out. They are hyping this up really big, so I'm eager to see if it lives up to that hype. Something else being hyped is the next-gen car. Let's move over to Bubba Wallace testing at Richmond Raceway today, Wednesday. Back in 2019, Richmond hosted the first next-gen testing with Austin Dillon, and now here we are 2 years later, about to release the next-gen car next year, 2022. In other news with the next-gen car, NASCAR Senior Vice President of Innovation and Racing Development John Probst announced that the development stage of this car is complete, and that teams will receive new cars mid-June according to NASCAR.com, so teams have time with the cars prior to the official debut in 2022 to take a look, test them out, get them ready for their drivers for racing next year. Very exciting stuff. I will post updates in the comments below about how the Richmond Raceway testing went. There is no information as of right now when I'm recording. I won't be able to record the rest of this week, but this is pretty relevant. I wanted to get this out to you guys, so I will post information down below as it comes out. Moving to the next topic, with LeBron James, another sports star, stepping into the motorsports world, has become a part owner in Fenway Sports Group, along with Maverick Carter, to become the first and only black partners in FSG history. This program with FSG in general means he is now part owner in the racing team Roush Fenway Racing and other company subsidiaries, according to a Boston Globe article. Another great partnership for the sport with another prominent sports figure. I'm hoping with this partnership we can start to bring in more and more prominent figures into NASCAR, which is very important for sponsorships, very important for image. It's important for bringing other fans of other sports into NASCAR. I've said this before with other pros coming into the sport. Obviously, I said this with Michael Jordan. I said this with some football stars coming in. It's a big deal. And now the announcement of this will probably bring in more people. There also might be a deal with another basketball star, Shaquille O'Neal, with Bubba Wallace, but I'm holding off for something to be confirmed there before I dive deeper into that. I don't want to speculate. I don't want to know. There was a Twitter discussion between the two. I'm excited to see if that goes somewhere. I'm hoping it does. I think that'll be really neat if it does. I'm also hoping that if LeBron and Maverick can talk to the Fenway team about some paint schemes, I'm hoping they can bring out some cool paint scheme ideas, some cool looks there. Don't know if they have a say, but I'm hoping that is possible. Speaking of the cars and potential new looks, NASCAR announced, according to Adam Stern, that they are again toying with the idea of moving the numbers from the center of the cars to another area, maybe towards like the back that we saw with the All-Star race last season, I believe. They want to do this to allow sponsors another opportunity to put their brand on the car in a big way, taking up more space than just the hood of the car. According to Adam Stern, quote, they're looking into where the number would be placed to help sponsor value and how any move would affect team value. And honestly, yes, that is the key, affecting team value. When I have some opinions on this, I truly feel there is a right and wrong way to do this. I'm so used to the number placement now, and I know personally for me, if the number is not going to be in the middle of the car, I'm not going to buy a die cast. I'm not going to really invest in collecting. I probably will. This is probably a lie, but it's just going to look weird. And I know fans are going to be thrown off by it. It also has to do with spotting the cars. If you're in the stands and the number is too small when it's moved back to the side of the car, it's going to be difficult to spot your favorite driver if you can't look at the hood of the car or the, the top part of the car. It's going to be really difficult, especially with spotters. I don't know if it'll affect them horribly. My thought on this is if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but I also know sponsorship is key, and if you can get a sponsor a bigger part on the car, they're going to use the money, the teams are going to get money, and we're going to have better and more efficient cars on the track. There are two concepts I want to take a look at. One coming from Lefty on Twitter. I freaking love this guy. He's super talented. Go check him out. I'm going to link him in the description below with all of his designs. He actually designed one of Jimmy Johnson's cars last season, so if something's coming from him, it's going to be real good. Look at this design that he did for number placement. The number here, absolutely big enough to see on the side of the car, and there's enough room for a sponsor spot near the nose of the car. Both big enough, both visible, both great. The tiny critique I have for this is that the number is cut off by the back fender there, but this is my favorite concept of the two I think I've seen so far, where everything's visible, everything's bright, everything's cool. One concept there. A second one I'm going to bring up is the placement on the SHR cars during last season's All-Star race. This tweet coming from Mateo on Twitter posted a reference picture for all of us to look at, reminding us of what the SHR cars looked like. I do remember actually not minding these that much. I know the concept to me I'm still not a fan of, but these cars I wasn't totally thrown off by. I especially like Kevin Harvick's car with the Busch can kind of sort of in the center of the car, sort of not enough to see the Busch sponsorship. It actually allowed for a pretty cool picture on the side of the car, and you could see the number. Like I said, I also have to remind myself, as much as I don't like this, the numbers have not always been centered. I think that is so important for fans to remember. If they're not happy about this change, it's changed before. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, but if it's going to help sponsorship, so be it. Finally, the last update. Doesn't make sense. I'll explain it though, but it's dogs, COVID, and racing. Something that don't go together, but will make sense right now as I explain it. NASCAR will be using dogs to test the drivers for COVID. The dogs will only be in the competitors area, the garage area, and if it's proven effective, they'll look into expanding this idea to the stands or for the fans as they walk into the racing area. This is apparently as effective as a normal COVID test, and the company responsible for the dogs is 360 Canine Group, who have specifically trained their dogs to sniff out the virus through their biodetection canine operation. They will still have initial testing for the drivers as a precaution, but this will be an interesting method to see if the dogs will work, and it will hopefully make coming back to the track more comfortable for the drivers so they don't have to have Q-tips stuck up their nose every time they are at the track. And also, I do want to mention they're probably doing both testing because they want to make sure the dog's accuracy is on point. They also just want to double check through the week as drivers kind of come in and out of the track, also are around each other, things don't spread. An NBC Sports article did state if a driver does have COVID indicated by a dog, quote, that individual will be isolated and undergo an extensive secondary screening by the NASCAR AMR safety team, medical director, or lead AMR physician on site. Based upon the secondary screening, the NASCAR AMR safety team, medical director, or lead AMR physician on site will determine if the individual is cleared to participate or should be denied access. So some pretty extensive testing there, though, but it is important that we keep the drivers, keep the fans, keep everyone going to the track safe. I'm curious about this. I hope they show a video of it in the pre-race show. I'm very interested to see if they mention how the dogs work, even mention the dogs in general. Very exciting stuff leading into the Atlanta Motor Speedway weekend. Speaking of going into that weekend, I am done with this podcast. Thank you all so much for listening to another episode of Above the Yellow Line, the podcast where we talk about all the updates, theories, news, recaps, and more of the NASCAR Cup Series. Make sure, like I said, to check out my pre-race podcast coming out soon of the Atlanta Motor Speedway weekend, the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500. So make sure you check that out. Also check out in the description below links to my socials, links to other NASCAR content creators. Thank you so much again for listening to this episode of Above the Yellow Line. Until next time, I'll see ya.